The dog barked in anger, his fur bristling as he stared down at the intruder. "How dare you touch my laptop? You don't have the right to lay your paws on it." His voice echoed through the room, filled with outrage at the audacity of the little creature. The small kitten, feeling tiny and apologetic under the dog's fierce gaze, looked up with wide eyes and replied softly, "I'm so sorry for this mistake." Her voice trembled as she realized how serious the situation was. The dog, indignant and puffed up with a sense of authority, growled lowly, "Now clean those dirty paw prints of yours off my precious laptop." He gestured dramatically with his paw, emphasizing the mess left behind as if it were a crime against technology itself. The tension hung in the air, with the kitten feeling the weight of her guilt. The tiny kitten hurriedly set to work cleaning the laptop, its little paws moving swiftly as it wiped down the screen and keyboard with a soft, fluffy cloth. It was anxious to avoid further trouble after the previous mess it had caused. As the kitten diligently polished every inch, it could almost hear the disapproving tone of its owner in the back of its mind. Once the laptop sparkled like new, the playful dog trotted over, a mischievous glint in its eye. With a cheerful wag of its tail, it snatched up the freshly cleaned laptop and exclaimed with a hint of excitement, "Bye-bye, honey. I'm off to the office." The dog pranced toward the door, ready to start its day, leaving the kitten to ponder the next adventure that awaited them both. From the bathroom, the dog's wife replied while meticulously applying her makeup, carefully blending her foundation and choosing the perfect shade of lipstick. "Okay, honey, see you soon," she called out with a warm smile. But just as the door closed behind the dog, she suddenly shouted, "Servant, come here." The poor kitten, who had been napping peacefully in the sunlit corner of the room, was startled awake. In a panic, he dashed upstairs, his tiny paws pattering against the wooden floor. Unfortunately, he slipped on some loose papers scattered across the landing, tumbling head over paws and landing with a soft thud. As he tried to regain his balance, he felt a sharp pain in his side, realizing he had injured himself in the process. "Come fast, or you won't get any food tonight." The dog's wife shouted again, her voice echoing through the cozy little house, filled with the warm scent of dinner being prepared. The kitten, who had been sitting alone in a corner with tears streaming down his tiny face, wiped away his tears with a paw. Determination replaced his sorrow as he took a deep breath, feeling a surge of resolve. With a flick of his tail and a newfound energy, he ran as fast as his small legs could carry him, his heart racing with hope and urgency, eager to reach the kitchen before the food was all gone. The sound of his tiny paws pattering against the wooden floor resonated with the promise of a delicious meal to come. "Who are you?" the dog's wife questioned, her tone sharp as she eyed him suspiciously, her ears perked up in curiosity. "Your servant, ma'am," the kitten replied nervously, shifting from paw to paw as he avoided her gaze. The dog's wife, with her sleek fur glistening in the sunlight, pointed disdainfully toward the grime-covered windows that had accumulated layers of dust and dirt over time. "Then why are those windows dirty? It reflects poorly on our home. Clean them," she commanded, her voice echoing with authority as she tapped her paw impatiently on the floor, waiting for a response. The kitten gulped, feeling the weight of her words, and hurriedly nodded, his tiny heart racing at the thought of tackling the daunting task ahead. As the tiny kitten began cleaning the windows with cautious little strokes, memories flooded back of his previous life, a luxurious existence spent in a cozy home with his loving parents, surrounded by soft blankets and the gentle purrs of days were filled with warmth as they played together in the sunlit garden, chasing butterflies and basking in the gentle breeze. Now, however, he found himself reduced to nothing more than a servant in this unkind household where kindness was a foreign. The angry dog's wife, known for her sharp tongue and impatience, shouted from the kitchen, her voice echoing through the cramped space, "Don't waste the whole day on those windows. You need to go and prepare food for 50 people." Her words hung in the air, each one a reminder of his new reality, as he sighed and reluctantly turned his attention to the daunting task of cooking for the large gathering, longing for the days when he was cherished rather than merely tolerated. The tiny kitten protested softly, with a quiver in her voice, "But ma'am, I can't make that much food alone. I need someone to help me." She looked up with wide, pleading eyes, hoping for some understanding. However, her response was cold and unyielding, filled with an air of authority that left no room for negotiation. "Do the task or forget about your salary." The weight of the ultimatum hung in the air, leaving the little kitten feeling both anxious. Reluctantly, the small kitten began the arduous task of preparing the food. his little paws stinging from the flames that danced dangerously close. As he stirred the bubbling pot, he couldn't help but think of the meals his mother used to prepare for him, filled with love and care, the kitchen filled with delightful aromas that wrapped around him like a warm hug. He reminisced about being treated like a prince, with soft blankets and gentle purrs that made him feel safe and cherished. Now, however, he found himself laboring tirelessly day and night as a servant in this dog's household, where his efforts often went unappreciated. The stark contrast to his former life weighed heavily on his heart. After hours of hard work, sweat beading on his brow, he finally managed to cook a lavish feast, complete with savory dishes and colorful garnishes, fit for 50 hungry guests. The sheer volume of food filled the table, a testament to his dedication, even as the memories of his past life lingered in the back of his mind. Suddenly, the dog burst through the door, panting and wagging his tail excitedly. He barked, "Hey, you kitten! Don't cook any more food. The party's location has changed." The kitten, who had been carefully preparing a feast with all his favorite ingredients, felt his heart sink in disappointment. He had spent hours chopping vegetables and stirring sauces, dreaming of the delicious meal he would serve to their friends. Frustration bubbled up inside him, and he wanted to shout out his anger at the sudden change of plans. Instead, he took a deep breath to control his emotions and replied with a hint of sadness, "But sir, I've worked so hard for this food. It took me forever to get everything just right." The dog barked back with an air of authority. "Then take all this food and dump it in the dustbin." The servant kitten felt utterly crushed by the command. Could he really throw away all that nourishment that could sustain so many? The colorful array of leftovers, rich meats, fresh vegetables, and delightful scraps seemed to mock him as he reluctantly gathered all the food to discard it. Just when he thought he could go through with it, a flicker of memory sparked in his mind. His mother's wise words echoed softly in his ears, reminding him, "Never waste food. If you have extra, donate it to those in need." The thought of hungry animals and children flashed before him, and he felt a renewed sense of purpose. Instead of tossing the food away, he decided to find a way to share it, turning his initial despair into a mission of kindness and generosity. Motivated by this principle of sharing and kindness, the little kitten eagerly took the food in its tiny paws and ventured out to find a group of homeless cats nearby, huddled together for warmth. As the kitten approached, their eyes lit up with joy at the sight of the generous bounty of food, sparkling in the sunlight like a treasure. Soon, they were all happily munching away, purring in contentment as they savored each delicious morsel together. The once empty alley was filled with the sounds of their delighted feasting. Just then, the dog's car pulled up with a soft rumble, and he spotted his servant, a kind-hearted soul, donating food to the grateful homeless kittens. The dog couldn't help but wag his tail in approval, proud to see such compassion in action. "Come here, you poor servant," he called, his voice echoing through the quiet afternoon. The little kitten felt a wave of dread wash over him, his heart racing as he dashed back towards the house, his tiny paws scrambling over the grass. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows as he raced forward. Upon arriving, he was shocked to find his mother standing there in the doorway, her fur slightly ruffled and her eyes wide with disbelief. She had a worried expression, as if she had been waiting for him for an eternity, and the sight of her made his heart sink with a mix of relief and confusion. What could have caused such a reaction? "Mom," he cried, rushing to embrace her, "I don't want to live here anymore. Please get me out of here." The dog, seemingly taken aback, said with feigned concern, "Why, my little kitten? Why do you want to leave this big house?" The kitten couldn't believe his ears. Was this dog really acting polite? He turned to his mother and insisted, "This dog is not what he seems. He doesn't treat me well." His mother, confused and worried, asked, "What's going on here? Why did you call me?" The dog, still wearing a fake smile, replied, "I wanted to assure you that your kitten is in good hands. I treat him as my own child." "No, Mom. He's lying." The kitten interjected, his voice shaking with emotion. "He treats me like a servant." The mother cat's look hardened as she glared at the dog. "I trusted you to take care of my kitten. Why is he saying these things?" The dog, still pretending to be kind, replied, "Oh, he's just confused and overwhelmed. We love him here." But the mother cat was not convinced. "I need to see where he sleeps," she demanded. Reluctantly, the dog led them to the tiny, cluttered room where the kitten was forced to sleep. The mother cat's eyes filled with tears upon seeing the unkempt space, far from what she had envisioned when she entrusted him to the dog. "This is not what I imagined when I left him in your care," she said sorrowfully. Just then, the dog's wife returned from the party, parked her car, and not noticing the cat and her kitten, shouted, "Servant, come here and clean my car. Otherwise, you won't get food tonight." Hearing this, the mother cat's anger surged. What will she do, she thought, her protective instincts kicking in. "Kitten, pack your things. We're leaving." The dog tried to intervene, but the mother cat stood her ground. "You deceived me," she said firmly. "You promised to treat him well, but you only wanted to serve it." Furious at the betrayal, the mother cat decided to take action. She filed a complaint with the authorities about the mistreatment of her son. The police arrived swiftly, responding to her concerns, and arrested the dog for his deceptive behavior and failure to provide a safe environment. The dog's wife, now ashamed and nervous, explained everything to the police. With the dog taken away, justice had been served. With the ordeal behind them, the mother cat and her kitten returned to the warmth of their loving home. "I'm so sorry I had to leave you with them," the mother cat said, brushing her paw through her kitten's fur. "I never imagined they would treat you this way. I had a business meeting outside the country and thought they would take good care of you." The kitten snuggled against his mother, relieved to be back in familiar surroundings. "It's okay, Mom," he said softly. "I'm just glad to be home."